Hi, hello, friends, and welcome into another edition of the Racing Angle. This one, episode 18, titled Old School New Rules. And yes, it features Helio, Meza, who we're going to talk to later on in the show. We will air that interview in just a bit. I'm Logan Morris, whatever's left of him, and thank you again for tuning in each and every Wednesday right here on the Racing Angle. Welcome back to the channel. We are as live can get, and so we'll see how all that shakes out. Uh, Peyton is back there on the ones and twos. However, she's not going to be on air this evening. She's feeling a little under the weather, but she is fighting through, and she's gonna produce the best she can for us. And so, with that, what do you say we get to some race talk, some race action, some thoughts, some rambles, and all the kind. And I plan to give it to you. Let's get to our race week rewind. All right, our race week rewind. Look, there was no cup action due to the Easter holiday. And by the way, I hope everybody had a wonderful Easter weekend. If you celebrate, we hope it was a fruitful one filled with fellowship and family, if you're into that sort of thing. If not, still hope you had a damn good weekend. And so the Cup Series was off. It's the lone off weekend until like the second week in November. So how sweet is that? All right, your Sundays are booked, folks. Your Sundays are booked. All right, but Rockingham was on the docket for the O'Reilly Series and the Truck Series. And there's a lot of talk about Rockingham and should it get a cup date. I'll have thoughts on that later on. But first, let's break into the O'Reilly Series. William Sawalowicz gets his first career win in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. And how cool that is. Freddie already tuning in, already chiming in with a comment saying it's showtime, boys and girls. Yes, it is showtime indeed. And William Sawalowicz, showed up, showed out. And look, I think you look at that, and this is a guy that goes from prospect to future player now. We know the ceiling for him is high. We know Coach Gibbs and company believe in him. We know Sawalowicz has got that high upside. He's a major prospect, and this is the moment where kind of the rubber finally met the road, so to speak, and he really stakes his claim as one of the next big faces, at least in the prospect pile, right? Some guys get a little forgotten about every now and again. I'm not saying that was happening to William Sawalowicz. That's not my point at all. But I'm saying that sometimes momentum, potential is just, it just means you haven't done anything yet. And this took potential and made it real. For him to get the win at a historic track like Rockingham, that's big time. I mean, that is big time, absolutely. And so, that he goes from just learning to flat out competing. And I think we're in for a lot of change at Gibbs over the next year or two. And, how much longer is Denny Hamlin going to compete? Great question. My assumption is this year and next. We'll see. The door seems to be ajar for 2028, but that's about as good as I'd put it. It's ajar. And so we're going to see a lot of changes at JGR in the coming years. And this is William Sawalowicz kind of putting himself kind of back in those conversations. Because let's be honest, when you think about the future of like the 11 car, right? You're thinking more, at least I'm thinking more Brent Cruz. That's who I kind of have my eye on. Or a big free agent splash that is yet to materialize or we've yet to see. Because again, I'm under the assumption that 11 car is going to be open after 2027. We'll see what happens. That is not for sure by any stretch, but it does seem to be the most likely outcome. So William Sawalowicz getting it done, and really it was a young gun evening if you think about it. It was a young gun on weekend because he led 80 laps. He got his first win. But let's talk about the fact that Corey Day got the pole and dominated the day for Junior Motorsports, for Hendrick Motorsports, whatever you want to call it. Corey Day kind of put himself on the map at Rockingham as well. Now, again, he dominated the day and he came up short, but we finally have got something out of him. And I'm not trying to put him down. I'm just saying it has been a quiet start to his O'Reilly Auto Parts career. And so, really, in some ways, this is not only was the William Swalovich coming out party, it was Corey Days as well. Brandon Jones had a strong day, as did Justin Allgaier, Roger Cruth, and Carson Quaffle. Now, when I mention those names, except Allgaier and Jones, we're talking about the future of this sport, the young guns of this sport, the ones that are going to make their name here in a year or two, and really be at the forefront of the opportunities and the controversies that are going to come down the pike. And so, very interesting to me that you had the old school track in Rockingham, but you had a lot of young guns, a lot of newcomers, kind of staking their claim of, hey, yeah, there's some vets around here, but we can make our name and we can make our claim that we're the next ones to be called up. And we know how great an O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, strong season or strong run can really push you to the forefront. Don't believe me? Connor Zilisch, if he wasn't owning everything under the sun in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, guess what? He's not at Trackhouse right now. And, it's been a less than auspicious start for Connor Zilisch in his rookie campaign in the Cup Series. But he's there because he's proven that he can beat anything the O'Reilly Series has to offer. And so is this the start of that for William? Is this the start of that for Corey Day? Is it where you start to go from, just kind of a face in the crowd to a real contender to get another ride? Now, I know guys like Corey Day and Swalovich are a little bit of ways away, but you never know what a strong campaign can do, especially as boardrooms adjust and things shift and all that. We know that teams like Legacy are looking for somebody in a third car next season. We know that there's going to be we know that Kyle Busch is, at the end of his contract with RCR. Maybe they're looking for a young gun. We'll see what happens. Maybe they're just going to move a young gun up in Jesse Love. Who knows? Maybe they re-sign Kyle Busch, though I have to tell you, last weekend felt like the beginning of the end of that relationship, didn't it? I mean, that just felt kind of that felt like he's pretty unhappy here, and it's not working. And I think we'll look at last weekend, meaning at Martinsville, as potentially the moment we knew that RCR and Kyle Busch weren't long for this world together. Could be wrong. We'll see. I just rarely am. And so a lot of young guns staking their claim this weekend at the NOPS race, the O'Reilly Auto Parts race. Riley Herbst's going to Legacy. I could see it too, right? He's got that monster money, and funding is the name of the game in racing. For better or worse, I've talked at great length of how kind of stupid I think that is at certain points, and I still feel that way. But it is what it is, and yeah, so I could see Riley in the third Legacy car. If I had to guess, I think it's either Riley Herbst or Jesse Love, and I say Jesse Love because Jimmy Johnson is reportedly very high on that young man, and so if I would say Riley Herbst is the favorite right now, but I think Jesse Love is in that conversation. I think Corey Heim is in that conversation, depending on what Riley Herbst and 2311 do. And so, but I would say he's certainly the least likely candidate, Corey Heim, I mean. And so, interesting all to think about. Without the Cup Series, there were still plenty of storylines to pay attention to, still plenty of things to look at, because every week, folks, at every series is an audition for somewhere else. And that's one of the cool things about NASCAR. It's one of the cool things about motorsports, is every week is an audition for somewhere else. If it doesn't work out at Legacy Motor Club, all right, I can go. I can see if I can get a ride to JGR. If it doesn't work out at JGR, I can see if I can go to RCR. If it doesn't work out at RCR, I can go to Front Row. There's always opportunity, and there's always things going on. Don't believe me? Daniel Suarez is hopping around like the Easter Bunny every single year, it feels like. All right. People forget about this. Feels like the Stone Age, but it wasn't that terribly long ago that he was driving for Gaunt Brothers Racing. And for those young kids that go, Gaunt Brothers Racing, who is that exactly? Exactly. So you bounce around, and you never know when the right opportunity comes. And so far, he looks darn inspired, doesn't he? So yeah, it always matters. It always matters. In the truck series, stop me if you've heard this before. Well, don't, because you have heard this before. Corey Heim gets it done in the truck series at the Rock. And this man is like a rock when it comes to uh, the truck series. He might be the greatest truck series driver of all time. He might be. I know people are going to say, well, you're jumping to conclusions. You're doing this. You're doing that. The way he just owns the truck series when he competes in it, people, he is leading the point standings and he's missed 2 races. Corey Heim has missed 2 races and he is tied for the lead in the point standings. In what world does that happen? In an era where we crave parity, where we crave all those sort of things, where we crave the closest action we can possibly find. Guess what? Corey Heim comes in and says, hold my adult beverage of choice because I'm going to own this piece. It is once again an atrocity of atrocities that this man does not have a full-time ride. He should be somewhere with a full-time ride. Sam Hunt Racing, full-time ride. Joe Gibbs Racing, full-time ride. 2311, Legacy Motor Club. He should have a full-time ride. I'm going to say it every single time he wins, which happens to be every single time he gets into a truck. And I'm going to scream to the hilltops because it is so stupid. It is nothing short of that. I don't know whether he means to or not, but he is shoving it in every Toyota executive's face every time he wins a race. He's absolutely shoving it in their faces. I mean, every single time. Because for whatever reason, for better or worse, and I'm not trying to put him down when I say this, Riley Herbst is in that third 2311 car. We all think it's probably due to that monster money, and I'm not putting that down. We all could use a little bit of monster money. But he makes Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan look like fools compared to what Corey Heim is doing. Toyota, if for some reason if that monster money is just too good, and that's the world we live in, so I ain't putting that down. Toyota and Legacy Motor Club look like fools to not be like, hey, John Hunter, you might need to move. Because I'm not saying that he would get in a Legacy car or a Gibbs car or a 2311 car and dominate like he is the Craftsman Truck Series. Not at all. But it becomes clear every single, and it's been clear, it's been crystal clear, it's been 2020 vision clear for a long time now that he has outgrown the truck series like a fat kid in a toddler outfit. I mean, he has just outgrown it to such a degree that it's like Kyle Busch a few years ago. And I mean, I'm talking about a full-fledged, bona fide Hall of Famer. Some say the greatest of all time, Kyle Busch. And I'm telling you that Corey Heim is just as a threat as Kyle Busch is in a truck. Ever was in a truck. And either I'm off my rocker, which I know that's kind of my gimmick, or this guy should have a full-time ride in some place that's not the truck series. Frankly, it should be the Cup series. He just wins to such a degree that we don't even need to try the O'Reilly Auto Parts series. We don't even need to try it. And so I will say it again. He should have a full-time Cup ride somewhere. Somewhere, someplace. People should be moving people out of the way because the hype around this young man for right now is very real. And frankly, if I'm 2311 or Legacy Motor Club or Joe Gibbs, I wanna capitalize on that hype because it's a fickle mistress. Suddenly, Connor Zillich feels a little forgotten about. He feels a little bit ill in the wilderness. Suddenly, he's not the hot prospect, and so you got to enjoy that while you got it. Now, for the record, I think people acting like, well, Connor, Connor ain't as hot as we thought. Give him a little time. Give him a little time. But I'm just saying, in the NASCAR Reddit circles, in the online X circles, all of a sudden Connor ain't quite as cool. He's not the flavor of the month. And so you got to cash in on that way you can. Freddie says Corey Heim, when it's all said and done, will be one of, yes, absolutely. And he might already be. He might already be. I mean, think about it. If we're just talking about a truck series career, he might be a Hall of Famer. And before anyone goes, that's crazy, is Matt Crafton not a Hall of Famer? Is Matt Crafton not a Hall of Famer? Sure is. Hello, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. I'm not sure of your name, but hey, we appreciate you tuning in. And don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button if you'd be so kind. We're talking about Corey Heim at the moment. And I think if you just stop at the truck series, he might be a bona fide Hall of Famer already. And again, if you think that's crazy, isn't Matt Crafton a Hall of Famer? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Absolutely. 1,000% yes. And if you say otherwise, you're absolutely, I think, off your rocker. But that's just one man's humble opinion. So that's some of my thoughts on Rockingham. Arc East, Tristan McKee dominated every lap and led from the pole. Rockingham. This was late Saturday morning, and Tristan McKee is a very young man. I believe just 16. I think that kid is. He dominated the Trans Am Series last year at like 15. And so he's another blue chip prospect. He led every lap, dominated from the pole. Yes, absolutely. But frankly, if Corey declared his points for the Truck Series, and I mean, honest to God, he's just get a waiver because he leads the standings right now as his points are. So that's just something worth thinking about. But Tristan McKee dominated Archie East. Destiny Spurlock was in that race. She looked strong, especially at the end. She had a odd. Her window net was down, and that caused a black flag that set her back a little bit. But again, Tristan McKee was the big story of that race, dominating every single lap. That was late Saturday morning. If you weren't tuned into Flow Racing or the NASCAR channel. And so that was a fun one to watch. Freddie says Tristan McKee and Carson Brown are two future stars heading for absolutely. Keep your eyes on those names because here in a couple of years they're going to be around this here household if you catch my drift. But yeah, that's our thoughts on the weekend for Rockingham. I did promise that this episode would feature an interview with Helio Meza, the Trans Am series. He dominates the TA2 series so far. He is 3 for 3 in his first 3 Trans Am series starts. He's a Team SLR member, as was Laney Bice that we had on last week. And so we kind of continue what is our impromptu Team SLR series. Without any further ado, here's our full interview with Chevy development driver Helio Meza. You're not going to want to miss it. Take it away. Welcome in this week to the Racing Angle, and we got a very, very special guest. We have a man that has dominated the Trans Am TA2 series in his 3 starts for Team SLR. Of course, I'm talking about Helio Meza. Helio, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time, brother.
Yeah, thank you, Logan, for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Oh man, we're really looking forward to this one. All right, take me back. Last year, you jump in the Trans Am TA2 car at Coda, but let's go back even further than that. How did that deal come along? How did your relationship with Team SLR come along?
Right. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I'm part of the Chevrolet Junior Development Program, and being a part of the Wise program with Josh Wise, Scott Speed, Dan Stratton, and obviously they're really connected with Team SLR. Tristan running with them, Tristan McKee running with them last year, so they created a really strong relationship. And so I was kind of in the talks with Josh Wise and Lorna Neer, and they wanted me to get into the series. And obviously the team that dominated last year and was a Chevrolet affiliated brand was, or team was, Team SLR. And so I did a test with them at VIR, I want to say a month prior to when they raced there last year. And that's when I got to meet Scott Lagacy for the first time and meet all the guys, and we kind of clicked really well. And the test went really well as well, and it was my first time in a TA2 car, so that was really cool experience for me. And then it's just kind of one thing led to another. And Scott was like, "Hey, would you like to come join us at Coda?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not? Let's do it." And that's kind of how that all started.
And then you come join them at Coda, and then you jump in the TA2 car for essentially the first time. You lead every lap, you dominate, you win your first start. What were the emotions like for that? I mean, just how'd you feel? Were you shocked? Were you stunned? I mean, you essentially came in there and kicked the door down from day number one. How did you react to all that?
Right. No, I mean, so going into the weekend, I'd always obviously followed the series for years prior to that, and I knew there was a really good competition. And honestly, going into it, I had no expectations really. I was hoping for a top five at the best. I was like, man, that would be a solid weekend for me. And I remember I tested on Thursday, and I had really good speed. I was like, man, this we may do good this weekend. And then obviously qualifying got rained out or whatever, but I was quickest in the official practice. So we started on the pole, and I was like, man, this is pretty cool, starting on the front row for my first start. And then obviously, like you said, leading from green to checkered, and coming across the stripe, it kind of hit me. Like, it took a while for it to set in, because I wasn't expecting it. I'll just tell you honestly, I going into it, like I said, I didn't think I was going to win. And so obviously, to win on your debut, and obviously in Texas, where I'm from, and having all the family around, and it was just a really cool experience, or moment for me to share with my family as well, and all the people that made sacrifices to get me where I'm at.
And then you essentially pulled the same feat off this year at Sebring and then rode Atlanta. You're the first in Trans Am history to win their first 3 starts in the series, and we're in the 60th anniversary now of the Trans Am series. So, what does that stat mean to you? I mean, you're 3 for 3. You're the first to ever do it. When I tell you that, what does that mean to you?
It's pretty cool. I can't lie about it, but I don't know. I've always been a driver who he really doesn't let the, I guess, pressure or the results kind of, get into my head. I've always been the type of guy, whether I win or lose a race, I always try to have the same mentality. And so obviously it's great to win three and all of that, but I'm just happy to be in a race car and doing what I love. And 2 years ago, I didn't know if I was going to be able to continue racing cars just with the funding that I had. We didn't have anything. And so, fast forward 2 years later, I win three races in a row in my rookie season. And it's really cool. And so I can't thank the people around me. And obviously to be the first in history, like you said, in the 60th year of the Trans Am series is really cool.
And then you talked about that the funding issues you've had over the years. Take us into that. There's some things I think that fans and certainly us media we don't even fully realize. Talk about how difficult that is to maintain those relationships and gain that sponsorship, and just what that's like for you.
Yeah, racing is no joke when it comes to the money that you have to spend just even on the entry level with karting. So, I came from a road course background, karting, similar to like Connor Zillage, your Brent Cruz, Thomas Annunziata, all these guys. And even, in the karting level, me and my dad could, barely go to national level events. And, I remember we'd be on a 2-year-old chassis, 2-year-old used chassis, and I'd be racing against other kids who were on new equipment every weekend and taking, practice tires out of other teams' trash cans, just trying to save money for the weekend. And I don't know, growing up, I always had the mentality of trying to make the most with whatever you have, making the most of the little stuff that you have. And so, obviously as you get older, as a kid, you're like, man, I want to go race IndyCar or NASCAR. But then as you get older, you realize it's not as easy as saying, I just want to hop in the thing. There's a lot of funding behind it. And so, you know, as I got older, I didn't know if I was going to be able to continue racing, and it kind of worked out where the timing and where I heard about the Mazda scholarship program that they run, and I got accepted into the shootout program for Spec MX5 in 2024, and kind of same thing as Coda. Went into it not really expecting anything, and came away with a scholarship, and that opened some new opportunities and doors during 2024. I came back and ran the MX5 Cup shootout and won the runner-up scholarship, and that led to a year of racing in 2025. And then, just one thing, it's just kind of been one thing leading to another. And I think really it's been me making the most of every opportunity I've got. And obviously now being, part of the Chevrolet Junior Development Program is, a dream come true. And if you were to tell me that 2 years ago, I'd call you crazy. And so, yeah, just really grateful to be in the position that I'm in, and making the most of it.
Was there a moment over the last 2 years where you kind of realized the tide was turning for you, where you talked about the sponsorship and funding issues, but then you get into accepted into the shootout program, you have success in MX5. Was there a moment where you go, "Hey, I'm starting to figure this out. The ball's starting to roll the right way"?
Yeah, I would say it was when I won the MX5 Cup shootout in 2025. When I was in the 2024 shootout with Spec MX5, hopping in an NB Miata or NC Miata at the time, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Getting to drive one of those tiny little cars, and I really had no idea about what Mazda was, and kind of what their whole deal was about their scholarship programs and all the money that you win from racing in their series. And I remember I raced Spec MX5 in 24, and I learned more about the MX5 Cup and how they ran with IMSA and IndyCar, and I'm like, man, this is the top level class. And so I won the runner-up scholarship for that series, and I was like, man, this is pretty cool. I'm running with IMSA. I got to run at St. Pete, one of the tracks that I grew up watching IndyCar going around. And I remember doing the track walk there at St. Pete, and you see all these IndyCar drivers doing the track walk as well. And it's like kind of like just fanboying out there, really. And it's just been really, really cool. And then obviously now running in the TA2 series, and a series kind of similar to MX5 Cup that I've looked up to for many years, watching Connor Zillage run. And so, now that I'm in this position and, actually winning races is really cool. So, like I said, I'm just really lucky and grateful to be in the spot that I'm in.
And you mentioned Connor Zillage. I know that you stayed with the Zillage family for quite some time. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, that was super cool. It's actually a really cool story. So, Lauren Rainier, the Chevrolet scout, they were they asked Jim, Connor's dad, who are some carters we could look into, and potentially helping out, and kind of doing what we did with you guys. And at the time, we didn't know Jim. I didn't know who Jim was. Obviously, I heard of Connor because he was winning everything in the karting stuff, and Jim had called my dad kind of out of the blue, and it was like, hey, Lauren, he put us in contact with Lauren, and was, like, hey, we want to bring you out to do a Legends test at Anderson. And so we went out there, and I remember Jim actually let me and my dad stay at his house. We've never even met the guy, and he let us stay at his house. And um, Jim's probably one of the most amazing people that I've ever met, and I always tell him he's like my second dad to me. Um, and I remember it's another cool story. I got to his house for the first time, and he had all this racing gear laid out on the couch. And I thought at the time it was Connor stuff that they were just kind of air drying or whatever. And we talked with Jim and Connor, kind of hung out for a little bit, and then we went to bed. And before I walked up the stairs, Jim's like, "Hey, this is your stuff, by the way." And it was a bell suit, a new helmet, race shoes, race gloves. And at the time, I was borrowing gear from my friends. I was borrowing a Hans, helmet. Like none of this stuff was mine. So um, that was a really cool moment for me because Jim had no idea who he was, but he had already bought all this stuff for me. And yeah, I owe a lot of the credit to Jim Zillage and the whole Zillage family. And like you said, last year I stayed with them, so they just been really super cool to me and helpful. And obviously getting to know Jim and being surrounded by Connor, who's obviously had really great success and all the stuff that he's done. And so it's been a really cool environment to be in and get to know them.
And you talk about Jim being like a second father, but obviously your father has been so huge in your career. For those that don't know, that you were born hearing impaired, born deaf, and can you walk me through the process of how you're able to communicate in the car and what a struggle that was, kind of growing up, and just whatever you want to unpack there. I know there's a lot, but can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so I mean, just kind of another layer, another kind of roadblock that we had. So I was born with a condition called bilateral microtia atresia, and obviously my dad has been there since I was born, so he kind of lived through that whole. Um, you know, right away when I was born, the doctors knew something was wrong, and obviously my parents are just shocked and kind of overflown with emotions at the time, and my dad's told me he's like he didn't really know how to react in the moment because he's thinking about all these things. Am I going to be able to live a normal life or communicate with people? And thankfully, 3 months later, I was able to hear due to bone conduction technology, where it's basically where it basically a hearing aid vibrates against the side of your skull. And I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with shocks that a lot of runners use that sit on the side of their head, and it's the same thing. They use bone conduction technology. And so in the karting days, we never had a radio or a spotter, so we never really had to worry about that. But that was one of the things too, is as we got older, we realized, hey, how am I going to be able to hear in a race car? Having a radio is crucial. Like you can't go out on the track in a race car without being able to hear your team. And for a whole year, we reached out to many companies, and they either didn't have the resources or the time to help. And eventually, my dad was like, "Man, we got to take this into our own hands." And he has an engineering degree and kind of a background in that stuff. So he basically took parts from, bone conduction shocks and just all these different components and kind of made his own thing. And we kind of rigged it up inside the helmet and kind of made our first prototype, and we tried it one day on a track day, and all these wires were hanging out, and it kind of looks all funky. But my dad got it to work, and he got emotional, and I was pretty excited. And at the time, I was a little bit younger, and I didn't really know, how much all of this meant. But behind the scenes, my dad had stayed up, nights after night just trying to figure this thing out, and obviously it wasn't perfect, but he knew it worked. And then now we're on prototype 5 or 6 now, but we still have a little ways to go. But it's without my dad, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. He's the one that's got me into racing. He always wanted to race growing up, but he never had the funding to do it. His dad always told him, "You want to eat or do you want to race?" And my dad's like, "Oh, eating sounds pretty good." And so he kind of passed that on to me, and I fell in love with it. And so my dad's been there with me ever since. He was my mechanic, all throughout the karting days. So it was a really strong bond and relationship that we've had, ever since I was young. And so getting to share these moments, winning, these on the big stage in Trans Am Series or the T2 class, and just kind of giving that back to him and sharing it with him, and just letting him know that I'm grateful for him, and I wouldn't want anyone better to share those moments with.
And then what's it, go in more detail if you don't mind, what's it been like to share those moments in terms of like Coda and Sebring and now Road Atlanta, 3 for 3? What's been his reaction, and just how you guys kind of celebrated and embraced that?
Yeah, so he was there at Coda, and a lot of my family was there too. We're from Texas, and so not only my dad, but my mom's made a lot of sacrifices. I have two younger brothers, so every time I go travel and my dad's with me, especially when we were recording, my mom was always stuck home watching my two little brothers, and that can be a handful at times. And so really grateful to have my mom. She's a school counselor for a middle school. And so, she has a lot to deal with at school. And then obviously she comes home and, watches over my brothers and my siblings. And um, it's really just been a team effort. And, like you said, getting to share those moments with them is the least that I can do because it's, yeah, without their sacrifices, and I wouldn't be able to chase my dream and my passion for racing. And they always tell me, they'd be willing to do anything to help me chase my dream. So I just love sharing those moments with them because it's like, man, it's working, like all the hard work we're putting in, it's coming together. So it's special to share those moments with them.
And obviously, it is working, especially in the Trans Am and TA2 series. It is the 60th anniversary of the Trans Am series, as we've talked about. What's it mean to you to be a part of such a historic season in Trans Am history?
It's really cool. Obviously this, like you said, it's been the 60th anniversary of the series. So just even thinking about how far 60 years back goes is pretty wild. But getting to run at the tracks that we go to, the iconic tracks that I mean, like Sebring, Sonoma's coming up next, a track that I've never been to that I'm really looking forward to going to, that has a lot of history that NASCAR runs on. And it's just really cool knowing that a lot of big names have come through this series, and now that I have the chance and opportunity to run in it as well is really cool, and getting to meet all the amazing people, a part of the series as well. It's been really cool.
You mentioned Sonoma coming up and all the history there, but what are your expectations for the rest of the season? 3 for 3, you can't get any better than that. But obviously, you kind of temper expectations a little, I would assume. What's your goals for the rest of the year?
Yeah, just really, I mean, ever since the beginning of the year, it's just learning as much as I can, and I think I've done a lot. I would say I've prepped so much for this year with, Josh Wise, Scott Speed, Dan Stratton, all these guys that have so much knowledge in racing. And I think that's, one of the kind of unfair advantages I have is I have access to all this knowledge. And I go to the GM Technical Center every day where we look at data. I work out every morning. We'll look at data, do simulator stuff, and this is like every day. So it's basically like a school of racing. So you're always surrounded by racing and greatness and talent. And so as a driver, that's all you want to do, and you want to be like these guys that have all this experience. And so really my goals this year has just been learning as much as I can, enjoying the moment, and just being present really. And I think it's been paying off so far.
I think it certainly has. You mentioned Scott Speed and Wise. What kind of mentors have they been to you in this process? How influential have they been, and what's been your relationship like with them?
It's been super crucial. Without them, there's no way I'd be in the spot that I'm at today. Josh Wise having the psychology background that he has, and kind of instilling a discipline in me that I've really never had before. Last year was my first year in the program, and prior to that, I would never touch a book. I would kind of work out, but nothing near what I do now. I'm probably reading 2 new books every month, whether it's sports psychology book or just anything that can, better my mind that I can learn. And Josh Wise is really big about just kind of getting out of your comfort zone and doing things that are uncomfortable. And over time, it just shapes you into someone who always wants to try different stuff. And then obviously Scott Speed having the background that he has, at one point being a Formula One driver, a Red Bull athlete, and he has a really cool amount of knowledge, racecraft wise, and how to approach a weekend. And whether you've like if you've won a race, that it really doesn't matter to Scott Speed. He'll still point out all the things that you did wrong, and that's what I need, and that's what I like is they're hard on you. And as a driver, when I'm out in the racetrack, even when I'm leading and I make a mistake or I miss a corner, I'm hard on myself because I want to get better and pretty much drive the races as perfect as I can. And yeah, like you said, when you're surrounded by greatness, you just want to always keep getting better.
You talk about the mental aspect of driving there. When you're getting ready to go to 100 miles, when you're on the grid, getting ready to go green, what's going through your mind? How are you prepping? How are you feeling? Take me behind the helmet.
Yeah, I would say every driver is a little bit different, but the way I kind of approach it is just kind of being calm and just being present, really. Um, there's a lot of things that can go through your mind during a race weekend about, expectations or, you could say, going into Road Atlanta, worrying about trying to win three in a row. But in my mind, I was just focused on the race, really. I think one thing too that helps is these opportunities are so special to me that I think overthinking in a way is like selfish of me because myself 2 years ago would be doing anything to be in the spot that I was in at Road Atlanta or at Sebring to start on the front row to be on a top tier team like SLR, and for me to overthink and worry is it's not really cool. So I just go out there, I take a couple deep breaths in the car, and I just do my thing, really. I try not to worry about the outcome and just do the best that I can in the car, and whatever happens, happens. Obviously, as a driver, you want to win every race you go into, but that's just not going to happen. So, um, yeah, just really trying to make the most of every corner, really.
And then, what do you think has clicked the most for your 3 for 3 start? Is there some? I mean, there's no special ingredient. I get that, but what do you think the biggest purveyor has been in terms of leading to that success? What's really clicked for you guys?
Obviously being a part of a really strong team like Team SLR makes my job pretty easy. They've worked really hard. Last year they found, something big with Tristan McKee and kind of just went on a winning spree at the end of the year. And then obviously we're continuing that at the beginning of this season. And I think that's also a big confidence booster for me because I knew I was going into a competitive team. So all I had to worry about was just, driving the car. And I would say on my side, it's just the prep that I put into. I would say this is, Sebring Road Atlanta. It's the most I've ever prepped for any race in my life. And I remember I rode out of pit road at Sebring for practice, and I felt like I had done 1,000 laps there already, even though I'd never been in the TA2 car there. And that was a really cool and eye-opening experience for me because it showed me that if you really prep and put your all into your pre-race prep, that it's just the biggest confidence booster you can have because you know you did everything you could for that race. So you just go out there and have fun and rip.
Well, you've been so generous with your time. I want to ask you one more question. Uh, let's look into the future for a second. Where do you see yourself in 3 years, 5 years? What's your goals? What's your vision board look like, so to speak?
Right. Right now, obviously being part of Chevrolet and the junior development program, the goal is to be in NASCAR Cup one day. Obviously if the funding or the budget was infinite, maybe we could be there next year or 2 years, whatever that may be. But when we'll end up there, I'm not sure, or I will end up there, I'm not sure. But what I do know is I'm just trying to make the most of every opportunity. And if I don't end up a cup driver, maybe I'm driving an IMSA or whatever it may be, I'll still be a happy guy. If I'm in a race car with four tires, I'm the happiest I'll ever be. So obviously being in the spot I'm in is super cool. And like I said, just being a part of Wise and surrounded by all these great people. Obviously last year getting to live with Connor Zillage and learn a lot from him is it's I'm really lucky. That's all I can say. And so yeah, that's kind of the idea that we have now. And every day I work to try and get a little bit closer to that goal. But whatever happens, I'm just happy to be here.
Well, we certainly love that mentality, and we're wishing you the best over here. Finally, where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they support what you're doing?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Meza.Helio, where I post all my race weekends and updates on my stories. That's where I do all my main publishing and stuff like that. And so you just want to give a big shout out as well to you guys for helping me get on the show, and you, Logan, for having me as a guest. And then obviously want to thank Chevrolet, Team SLR, M1 Race Cars, Alessandro Racing has been super crucial in helping me get to where I'm at today. And all the series sponsors and Trans Am for helping out as well.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on, and we're wishing you the best of luck, not only this season, but for the future in your career. And thanks again so much, Helio, really.
Thank you.
Tired of missing that big play? Fed up with waiting hours for the wrap-up? The local scene deserves more. Heart-pounding. Game-changing. Homegrown. C-Bus Sports. C-Bus Sports brings you live updates, in-depth analysis, and local athlete spotlights all in one place. From high school to pro, they cover the games that matter to you. Get inside access from the locker room to the starting line. Meet the players that Columbus roots for. This is more than sport, it's our community. It's every kid in cleats, every team in the stands, and every fan who bleeds their colors. C-Bus Sports is here for the passion, the pride, and the hometown story. Go to cbussports.com today and be the first in the know. C-Bus Sports. The game doesn't wait, and neither should you.
Hi everybody. I just wanted to tell Logan he's muted. Bye everybody.
Hey, welcome back everybody to the Racing Angle, and we just wanted to thank Helio Meza for his generosity with his time and his kindness. We really enjoyed that interview, and we want to thank the folks at Team SLR for helping set that up. And I want to thank producer Peyton for chiming in there real quick about the fact that I was muted. I'll be a doggone son of a biscuit eating bulldog. But thank you for that, producer Peyton. All right, let's get to some quick hot lap headlines. Okie dokie, some hot lap headlines to get to. The biggest one probably being Cletus McFarland was not approved to compete at Talladega in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and he is cleared for ARCA and short tracks. The NASCAR doesn't feel comfortable right yet clearing him for the super speedways in the O'Reilly Series Auto Parts level. And I know this is a hot take, folks, but I got to say I agree with this. We have not seen much out of Cletus as far as outside of the ARCA level. He has shown some potential and ability at ARCA, and I just think it's going to take more time. He got a P4 this past weekend at Rockingham, but I think everyone that's kind of got the pitchforks out going, why are we clearing Cletus? He's not ready for it. This is one of the few times that NASCAR's been consistent. Remember, they've been tough on Norm Benning and Jennifer Jo Cobb and a couple others they want to make sure you're not a liability out there on the super speedways. And of course, there was the Mike Wallace kerfluffle last year at Daytona. And so this is not an inconsistent move by NASCAR. This is a very consistent call. And I got to say, I respect it. But that's just my take. That's just my opinion. Don't be afraid to let your voice be heard as well. But I do. I think everybody kind of getting the pitchforks out. For once, NASCAR's being pretty consistent, and I'm going to support that. Arby's is becoming a supporting partner of the NASCAR San Diego weekend at the Naval Base in mid-June. So now NASCAR has the meats along with Arby's. So everybody, I know that producer Peyton and I plan on getting beef and cheddars that weekend by the dozens, and we're gonna go to work on some beef and cheddars and maybe some mozzarella sticks and all that sort of thing. I like the jalapeno poppers myself, and so I'm going to get some jalapeno poppers. We'll make that happen for that June weekend. And finally, and I say this with love, but another week, another new Legacy Motor Club executive. Nobody loves the club more than I do around here, but Michael Gutietta is now the club president after kind of being lured away or given away by JGR, depending on what you believe about the press release. And so that's interesting because think about it. Jimmy Johnson at Media Day in Daytona talked about the fact that there was going to be more collaboration between JGR and Legacy Motor Club this year. And boy, does this signal that. And so the bright side of this is he's recently been the COO of Joe Gibbs Racing. And obviously that's going to lead to a lot of connections with TRD and Toyota. And so he can kind of help facilitate that. Joe Gibbs Racing can help facilitate that. And of course, the powers that be at Legacy Motor Club. He will, according to the press release, he started officially today and will report directly to Cal Wells III. So we'll see how that goes. At some point, Legacy's got to show some serious improvement for this all to kind of be worth it. I feel like sometimes they put Band-Aids over things to give themselves a little more leeway down the runway, so to speak. So we'll see how this goes. A new club president, and of course, I'm wishing them the best. Right, that's where my heart is. But it does always feel like, man, they don't go too long without naming a new higher up executive. Hopefully, Michael Gutierrez will absolutely help the club and help them improve as far as their week-to-week race results. We shall see. All right. With that, look, there's not a whole lot left to talk about, but there are a few things. So let's get to them as quickly as we can. Let's get to the lap ahead. This weekend, the Cup Series, it's Bristol, baby, the last great Coliseum down in Tennessee. We're going back-to-back short track racing. Remember, we just did Martinsville a couple weeks ago. And so we're back-to-back on the short tracks. The short track package tends to leave a little bit to be desired, but I remain hopeful every Sunday we come across one. And so we got all three series at Bristol at the last great Coliseum. And in the NHRA world, they call it Thunder Valley. So we'll see how it all shakes out. I'm going to make some predictions here. First for the truck series, I checked the entry list yesterday, and Corey Himes on it. So you can go ahead and kiss the baby. Corey Himes is going to win that race. I know Kyle Busch is on it. I was telling producer Peter last night, I said, isn't that like King Kong versus Godzilla right there? Talking about Kyle Busch and truck equipment, Corey Himes and truck equipment. You talk about a couple of rhinos locking horns. Oh, that's going to be cool. And so excited about that, but I think Corey Himes is going to win this duel. I just do. Freddie, my man. I respect where you're coming from, but you told me Carson Hocevar last week. And so I got one on you right now. I'm just saying, brother. However, I agree with you for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race. Kyle Larson will get it done. And then Sunday. That, of course, is the big question. In the old days, this, of course, you would think about Kyle Busch, right? This is Bristol. And in the old days, you'd think about Kyle Busch. And frankly, I still think he might get a respectable finish because he hasn't forgotten everything he's ever known. But I don't think Kyle Busch gets the win. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say I'm going to join Freddie on the Kyle Larson bandwagon. I think Chevrolet goes back-to-back. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Bristol, baby. So we'll see how that all shakes out. Before we get out of here, I do have a bit of a red flag rant for you, so let's go ahead and do one real quick before we say bye-bye. All right, if one thing became clear after this past weekend while you were eating your Easter dinner and hopefully giving thanks to the good Lord, Rockingham deserves a cup race. Rockingham absolutely deserves a cup race. It's not just about nostalgia. North Carolina is the backbone of the sport. It is the lifeblood of this sport. And so Rockingham deserves it based on location. They deserve it based on history. NASCAR is all about getting back to the roots right now. And nothing says back to the roots quite like going back to Rockingham for a cup race. And in 2027, that is what we should see, whether that's an all-star race, whether that's the Clash. I can do some give and take there, but they need a cup date with cup cars on that track because it's history, and every race should feel like an event, not some copy and paste. Every race should feel like an event, and at Rockingham, at least for a few years, it would. Now, I know that everyone that wants it to be a national sport, and it is, by the way, no matter where the race goes, well, we already have so many races in North Carolina. And what's wrong with one more? What's wrong with one more? I don't see the issue. You mean less travel for the sport? That's okay. That'll save some money. And we know it's a market that wants NASCAR, that needs NASCAR, that respects NASCAR. Rockingham absolutely deserves a cup date in 2027 of some kind. Again, I'm not saying it's got to be a points race, but the All-Star, the Clash, we can make these things happen. And again, it saves some dollars on the travel budget, and that's not too bad either. Rockingham deserves it based on pedigree, based on every race should feel like an event, and I guarantee you it would feel like an event at Rockingham next year or whenever the Cup Series returns to Rockingham. That's just my take. That's just my thoughts, but I want yours. Let me know in the comments down below. And Freddie says, if Norwalk Wilkesboro can get a Cup race, why not Rockingham? Yeah. I think Cletus could be a wonderful thing for NASCAR as long as he doesn't rush his development. As long as he doesn't rush his development. Don't rush it. Don't rush it. Don't worry about a thing, as the old song goes. With that, what do you say we get to our final lap? All right, we're coming up on the close of another wonderful hour. Again, we want to thank Helio Meza for being so generous with his time. That was great. I want to thank Producer Peyton for popping on, even when she's not feeling good, because I muted myself like a fool. Thanks so much on that. And I know she's looking forward to those beef and cheddars in gin. We got the NHRA this weekend. They'll be at the Lucas Oil NHRA Winter Nats out in Pomona, so we're excited about that. Again, we got all three series at Bristol, and there's just going to be tons and tons of racing. Like the Lord Arca West competes here in a couple of days. Haley Deegan will be on track. You can catch that at Flow Racing, and so we're curious to see how she bounces back in her still developing career. Still another off week for IndyCar, but there is a lot of racing coming up, and those are going to be even more as the year goes on, and we thank God for that. So for Producer Peyton, for everybody, Freddie, thanks for tuning in. Everybody that tuned in, again, want a special thank you to Team SLR for helping facilitate the interview with Helio Meza, and a special thank you to him. We really, really appreciate every viewer, every subscriber, every like, every comment. Even if we don't agree with the comment, I appreciate every single one of them. So don't be afraid to follow us on the social media if you haven't already. And until next time, until next week, stay tuned to our YouTube channel. And yes, we'll see you at the next track.